What do you think of? Let me turn this up here. What do you think of the Islamo-Marxist side here? As a fellow who comes from a very liberal area.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think that these people are actually foot soldiers in a holy war
Against?
Israel and the Jews. You see,
How about the Christian West?
oh, that too, for sure. But I think it starts with the Jews, and I think Israel is the initial target. I mean, the thing is that you say things like that, and people will call you, certain words, right? The problem is that everything I say is based on the historical record. I actually, on my Instagram, I collect articles that were published by the New York Times that shows all the times that the Arabs declared holy war against Israel and the Jews, and this occurred even prior to Israel being established. In 1929, the Arabs were already calling for a holy war against the Jews in the Mandate, and they also were calling for the extermination of the Jews. And also, for example, in 1938, the leaders of the religious leaders in Iraq called a fatwa for a jihad against the Jews in the Mandate, and told them that every Iraqi has to sign up for the jihad. By the way, this is an article you can read it in the New York Times yourself. You can just look it up. And again, the biggest call for holy war was done by the Council of Ulemas of Al-Azhar University on December 2nd, 1947. They called for a holy war. Now, if people don't know, the Council of Ulemas of Al-Azhar University is considered the highest authority among Sunni Muslims. And they called for a holy war. Not only did they call for a holy war, they said that the holy war is an obligation for everyone, and if you don't go to holy war, you're a sinner.
Right.
And by the way, that call for a holy war is still in place. It's never been rescinded. And I think the West has just blinded themselves to these facts. When people tell you something, you need to believe them. You can't just dismiss it as has been done in the past and say, oh, that's just talk or not. If someone blows themselves off in a bus, you have to believe that they're doing it. That's not because of land. That's doing it because of religion. And that's just the truth. And the New York Times has another article in 1968 where the Muslim leaders of 40 countries came together in Cairo and called for a holy war against Israel. Also in 1956, there's a Time article where the Council of Ulemas doubles down on their holy war. Nasser actually says he doesn't want to go to war with Israel, and the Council of Ulemas of Al-Azhar University says, no, actually we are at holy war. We need every Muslim to give money, to give weapons, and to make sure that they destroy Israel. This dialogue is not new. These people think they're clever and they've come up with something new. All you have to do is search the New York Times. They've written article and article about it. In fact, the founder of Hamas in 1997 stated very clearly that they are at holy war against Israel. Again, reported by the New York Times. In 1980, the king of Saudi Arabia said he wanted to go to holy war against Israel. So how many times do they have to say they want to go to holy war for you to actually believe that the war is actually religious by nature? And don't attack me for telling you this. I'm just telling you what they've said. Yeah. I get attacked sometimes for teaching this, but these are backed up by actual articles that were written at the time.
So, do these people know that this has been inculcated as a holy war against the Jews and Christians as their worldview? Do they know this, or is it a purely spontaneous reaction to Israel's treatment of Gaza?
I think for some of these people that I've spoken to that don't really have a lot of knowledge about the history, and I think they've been indoctrinated and they've seen certain things that you come into a situation today and you think that one side is doing something for no reason. Right. And you can see videos from Mossab who says that in the 80s he used to drive from Ramallah to the beach in Tel Aviv. There were no barriers, there was no anything. And actually, speaking of that, then the first Intifada started, where you had people blowing themselves up. In fact, Human Rights Watch, I just posted on my page, Human Rights Watch in 2002 condemned the Palestinian Authority for not doing anything to stop the suicide bombings. And they wrote a 170-page report about it, claiming that the Palestinian Authority was responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity, because over a period of just over a year, there were 52 suicide bombing attacks. So I'd like to ask, like, if there's a suicide bombing attack every week, what do you expect a government to do to protect their citizens? And so they were obliged to do that. Any country would protect citizens. And in fact, Human Rights Watch said that the Palestinian Authority was to blame. Again, you can look this up in the New York Times. They wrote an article about it. Or not only that, you can go to Human Rights Watch. I think their report, 170 pages, was issued approximately September 1st, 2002. And then what's interesting is that the hypocrisy of this movement is they've built a wall themselves to keep us out for their security, they claim. So how is it so hard for them to understand that in Israel, when people come and go into a bus with women and children and blow themselves up, that Israel doesn't need security? And also, I want to say something else unrelated. The Arab people after 1948 put their own people in 68 camps for a period of 75 years. That has nothing to do with Israel.
You're saying the Palestinians were put in what was essentially refugee camps for generations in where? In Lebanon?
Well, they were put in camps in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in the West Bank, in Gaza, and they don't have rights. The only country that's given full citizenship...
But who's denying their rights?
The Arab countries. So except Jordan, who has made peace with Israel, which shows that Israel can make peace easily as soon as the other side is agreeable to it. Jordan has given 2 million Palestinian citizens full citizen rights in Jordan. However, strangely enough, UNRWA still considers them refugees, which no other population of people. In fact, by that definition, I'm a refugee and my kids are a refugee. However, for example, Israel, they absorbed 600 to 700,000 refugees from the Arab world when the Arab world ethnically cleansed.
You're saying Jewish refugees who were expelled from the Arab world?
Yes, Jewish refugees that were expelled from the Arab world, Israel absorbed them. And initially, because there were so many people, they put them temporarily in camps, but very quickly gave them full rights, full citizenship, allowed them to integrate society. Right. And the Arabs, on the other hand, have not. Why would, if you care about your people, why, for example, Syria? There's one camp in particular that has 50,000 people on it. It's only 7 acres. It's one of the densest places on earth. Why, if you care about your people, would you do that to them for 75 years? It has nothing to do with Israel. The Arab people are using the Palestinians as pawns in this holy war. Because Israel didn't... Can you imagine if Israel brought 50,000 refugees from Yemen and put them in a camp for 75 years and said, you're only here temporarily, one day we're going to go to war with Yemen and bring you back there? You would think that's unconscionable, shameful. And yet, when the Arabs do that to their own people, people blame Israel. Israel, it's unfortunate that there was a war in 1948, started by the surrounding Arab countries, and it's unfortunate that there are refugees on both sides, But the Palestinian refugees don't have a unique situation. In fact, right now, if you look at the UNHCR, there are current United Nations Council for Refugees, Higher Council for Refugees, which is the UN organization that takes care of all refugees besides the Palestinians, which are taken care of by UNRWA. There are 110 million refugees right now. 110 million refugees right now. And UNHCR, their main goal is to find permanent place for them to live. That's their goal. It doesn't mean they renounce their ability to maybe one day go back to Syria. We've taken in Syrian refugees here. We've tried to bring them into society, give them citizenship rights, give them full rights. You can even look at our Congress. People that we've brought in as refugees are now in Congress. And yet the Arab world can't do the same for their refugees? Again, that's shameful.
Okay. My battery's going to run out,
Okay.
so that's going to limit our time.
All right. I've said a lot.